So we're back and we're going to take a look at what's called the if block. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to click over here because I know it is the if block. But oh, sorry, the switch block. It's what happens when you start using too many computer languages. So the if block basically is something that allows us to bring choice into our program. And it's usually choice based on a sensor of some kind. All right. So the very first thing I'm going to do is, as before, I'm just going to have a start and a stop block show up here. The next thing I'm going to do is take a look at what I have plugged in to my robot. Now, if you are following, because remember, go to the website for some details. That's just the brucelabs.com one. And what you'll find there is just basically the conditions for the robot so that these tutorials make sense. But basically what we're doing is we're using the basic robot directions that come with the LEGO Mindstorms 45544 project. It's like the basic intro project, and essentially it's got all the sensors on it for the most part, the minor motor or the medium motor, and then the two tank motors on it. Okay, and so basically what we can see here, A is my medium motor. These are my tank motors. This here is called the bump sensor. It's the one we're going to deal with the most. Then I have my gyroscope. Yeah, that's my gyroscope. I believe this is the line sensor, and this one here is the ultrasonic or the distance sensor. But for now, we are going to use the bump sensor. If you've wired your robot together, if we take a look at the bump sensor for a moment here, and if I can get the little pop-ups to go away, just pay attention to this little section right here for a moment. And when I press the bump sensor, it starts to show 1. And when I let go of the bump sensor, it shows 0. All right. So the basic idea here is we are going to have a very simple program. And what's going to happen is that if the bump sensor is off, or it's in the 0 position like it currently is, then the robot moves forwards. And if the bump sensor has been touched and it reads 1, then the robot will move backwards. All right. So most of the programs that we're looking at for the super intro stuff basically execute in a linear fashion. For example, we take a block and then we hook it to another block, and then we hook it to another block, like that. And most programs kind of look like this when you're first starting out. You start here, you go through a bunch of blocks, you end here. But the idea is that with the loop program that we just did from the last video, you can see that you don't need to put all these identical blocks in when you can actually have a loop in the program. And now we can actually have decisions in the program as well based on what the robot is sensing for the world around us. So the very easiest decision point here is to bring out this switch here. All right. Now, the first thing we're going to look at here is that if the bump sensor here is off and it reads 0, we're going to say that that's false. All right. And false is the same thing as X. All right. Whereas 1, and I'm just going to press the bump sensor to make it a 1 here, whereas 1 is going to be true. So the idea here is that if the bump sensor reads 1, this block gets executed. If the bump sensor reads 0, then this block gets executed. And that's pretty much it. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a block up here, and we're going to go over here, and we're going to do a tank motion block down here, like so. And then I'm going to drag away my blue block quickly, move this over to here, and I'm going to drag now, if I can get my hands onto it, a stop block, and we're going to put it right here. Now, you're probably thinking, why on earth do we bother doing that? Because my two tank blocks are both identical. So we should probably change them a little bit here, because right now, whether the bump sensor is false or true, the program does the same thing. So we should modify one of these blocks. So let's think about how we might do this a little bit. All right. So the very first thing we should consider here is why we have a bump sensor to begin with. All right. So bump sensors are usually used to let us know we've collided with an object, and when we've collided with that object, we should try and back up or change direction or do something like that. Okay? So the idea here is that if the bump sensor is at 0, that means nothing is happening and we should be moving forwards. 0 means false, which means that if nothing is happening and everything's normal, I should be going forwards. And so that's what we'll do here. And yep, looks good. Now, if the bump sensor is turned on, like this, it means I've hit something. That means if I've hit something, I should consider backing up. All right, so what do you say here? I'm going to take these values and I'm going to make them negative. And just for simplicity, I'm going to make them negative 100. And now what our program does is robot moves and moves and moves and moves forwards like that. But if the bump sensor is going, it should move backwards. All right, now we would need the loop structure to let this repeat itself over and over again. All right, but right now we've just set up the simple situation. Okay, if the bump sensor is off, robot wheels move forwards by 1 rotation. If the bump sensor is on, we back up 1 full rotation. All right, and I'm just going to download this into the brick now. You can hear the sound of that. And basically what I'm going to do is, if you're following along here, I encourage you to run your program now without the bump sensor on, and you should see the wheels rotate in one direction. And then when you run the program again, you should see with the bump sensor turned on, you should see the wheels moving in the opposite direction. And that's basically it. So it actually turns out that depending on what the sensors are sensing, the program using these switch statements can actually do different things. Pretty cool, I would say. So in the next little installment of our tutorial here, what I'm going to do is show you how you can combine both the loop and the switch blocks to create the robot, a robot I should say, that moves forwards until it strikes something that causes the bump sensor to trigger, and when it does, it'll start to move backwards, all right, until the bump sensor is turned off, okay? And basically, the idea there is that I think we'll get some unanticipated results in that program, and it allows us to talk about design a little bit more, all right? So I think we're finished here, and we will move on to the next branch of the tutorial. So I'll sign off for now.